So, gonna do some pre-market analysis today on NQ as always, on NQ and ES actually. So we have some interesting price action to say the least. Obviously, as you can see, we ripped through a lot of these draws of liquidity, a lot of these lows. Obviously, we see these session lows have been taken out. These session lows have been taken out. The only one that seems to have not been taken out, nope, these got taken out as well. So all these relevant lows got taken out. Obviously, these aren't going to get hit down here. These aren't going to get hit down here anytime soon, but all of these have been hit. So we have a ton of these draws of liquidity overnight that have been ripped through. I knew this was going to be an impactful imbalance left. This is a new week opening gap. So obviously we see price closed here on Friday, and then on yesterday night when Asia session technically opened, this is where we opened right here, and we left this gap. And then obviously if we measure it out, if I remember where that tool is, we see it opened a 0.5% lower, or 0.36, 22 pips, 88 ticks lower. And then obviously we see it continued to move down. Or actually, I think it's the other way. No, that's 88 ticks. Yeah, that would be 88 ticks. Okay. So obviously we see price has absolutely dumped off of the planet here. So it's going to be interesting to trade this because usually around these new week opening gaps, we'll see some of this liquidity get taken out and then price immediately go fill it in. Obviously, I have a couple good. Obviously, we see this new week opening gap was huge right here. And I do actually remember this being honestly more or less just a massive fake out. Obviously, this one opened a entire percent higher, filled in about half of it within New York session, and then that the day of, obviously. So New York session filled it in the day of, half of it, and then we completely fell off. But this was because of FOMC meetings, so that was kind of not exactly what you see. This was a very, very, very good example of it right here. I do remember this one because I was still on my demo account, and I completely killed a short here. So obviously we have this new week opening gap right here. Oh, I didn't know you could do the opposite way. But obviously we opened about like 1/3% higher than we closed. Oh, okay. I don't even know where I'm at now. Okay. Okay, my shit's just going to start tweaking. But yeah, as you can see, we opened like 1/3% higher, and then during New York session is when we completely dumped. This was an A+ setup, really, too. I mean, we had London session highs, obviously, located right here, completely swept these out, and then just fell off the planet. So this was actually a really, really good trade. I do remember this, and we were within some high time frame bearish order blocks up here, like especially the top of this wick that hadn't been touched yet, and then the top of this one as well that was just getting fed into. So we had a ton of confluences on that one, I do recall. So this week obviously seems to be very, very, very different. We clearly see that being the case here with where price wants to lay here, especially on the high time frame. So obviously we're on the hourly. The only confluence is like I would have loved to go long here, like full port longs, if we were hovering more around here. Obviously, with that not being the case, obviously we do have a nice bullish order block right here. This final move down before the move up. I'm not going to consider this entire move down a order block. That's just not going to happen. Just this bottom wick here, the wick of the bottom wick of the last candle. So obviously I can remove all this because obviously you can see that all this liquidity has been swept. So really these are the only relevant areas right here. Obviously this is also technically a 4-hour low as well. So we'll see how this ends up going. But really it's going to be interesting. Obviously we have a ton of these fair value gaps. This fair value gap in particular that needs to get filled in, and then this one as well. But we'll see how this candle ends up closing. Obviously, it's not formed yet. It won't be until 10 a.m. So we'll see how this ends up going. But obviously, don't even really have a bias today. I'm very interested to see what price ends up doing. I don't know. I want to trade with the trend. We do have some liquidity that is yet to be taken, but we've already taken so much liquidity that it's hard to want to continue to be bearish. So we'll just see how it ends up going. Obviously, we do have a fairly good setup down here. We'll see how this ends up going, but yeah, it's just going to be interesting either way. And the NASDAQ obviously is going to be more or less the same story, but NASDAQ obviously moves a little bit more like aggressive in a way versus ES. And my chart is just not even going to load. So I might not be giving my 2 cents on NQ because my chart is just not even loading. Okay, so my chart decided to load. So we're on the hourly time frame. Obviously, same story here, but a little bit more aggressive. We've taken out all this low resistance, all these draws of liquidity. Or actually, technically not this one. We did create equal lows. I think we created equal lows. Oh, nope, we swapped them. Yep, we took those lows out as well. So we've taken a little bit more lows out on NQ versus ES, but we did also, I mean, we left the same highs. So we'll use this as bias. Obviously, we'll see which one takes out what first. What takes out these highs first, what takes out these lows first. Obviously, with this hovering a little bit closer to these highs and within some of these breaker blocks that have formed because they just completely ripped through all the bullish order blocks. So we have created a ton of breaker blocks. We'll see how these end up going. So really, you got to be flexible with the bias today with where price lies between ES and NQ, obviously for futures. But obviously we see this drastic drop in price, between these last few hours over London session and Asia session. So we'll just see how this ends up going.